The Boogeyman is a 2023 supernatural horror film directed by Rob Savage and is based on the Stephen King short story of the same name. The film stars Sophie Thatcher, Chris Messina, Vivian Lyra Blair, and David Dastmalchian. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It received mixed reviews, with some calling it the best King adaptation in quite some time, while others called it a bland math fest. What did I think of it? Well, let's stop wasting time and start the review. The premise of The Boogeyman revolves around a therapist named William Harper, played by Chris Messina, trying to cope with the death of his young wife while raising two young girls, Sadie, played by Thatcher, and Sawyer, played by Blair. One day, a man named Lester, played by David, enters Will's office, pleading with him to listen to his story. When he decides to sit down with him, Lester tells the story of some horrible creature that has haunted his family for a long time, and was even responsible for the death of his 3 kids. Believing that the man might have lost his mind and committed these acts, he goes to report the man to authorities, but then the man is found dead inside a closet, and whatever he has brought with him has now latched itself to his family. I will admit, despite the huge bang this movie started off on, I still found it dragging in a lot of areas, especially when it came to the horror, sadly. There were a lot of moments where I could tell they were trying to build tension by prolonging some scenes, but that just made them drag more than they built the tension. It worked pretty well in some areas, but I ultimately just found myself wondering what would happen, or if anything would happen. When the scares did come, however, they actually do work pretty well. This movie takes a very subtle approach with its horror, which, while that did hurt in some areas because of how slow the film felt because of it, at the same time, it also works because when the scares finally did come, they left a much bigger impact. The characters are also built up well enough to make you root for them and hope they make it until the end. I give premise a B+. While it does start off with a bang and has characters that will grow on you because of how much depth goes into them, I do feel in terms of pacing, the execution could have been a little better. Next is acting. This is probably the best part of The Boogeyman, and probably where a lot of the horror was the most effective. One of the best performances in this, I think, has had to be David Dastmalchian's portrayal of Lester. He has a small role in the film, but what he does with it will just immediately invest you in the film and make you realize just how serious of a threat this monster truly is. This man, just from his behavior alone, is slowly going insane because of the impact the monster has had, and the terror these girls exhibit feels so real and so genuine that you can almost sense the same kind of danger they are in because of this monster. And the fact that the monster seems to only be focused on them also adds to the film overall. I give acting an A-. Easily the best part of the movie. Finally, directing. This was easily the next best part of the film aside from the acting, since, as slow as it was, there was still a disturbing and ominous mood all throughout the film. This is one of those films where, even if you don't know it's a horror film, if you were to turn it on with no knowledge of the film, even when nothing is scary is happening, you'd be able to tell that something awful is happening simply because of the eerie tone that is prevalent throughout. Hell, even during the day, there is barely any sun shining into the house, and still has a dreary feel even during the day. And that really did help with the film, since it gave the impression that the thing could literally be anywhere, which ultimately put the characters into a much more vulnerable place. I also love the metaphors the director put in involving how we must face those things that are holding us back, and also the allegories involving the monster, in how it represents pain. The pain is the family is going through after losing their mother, especially since it seems to attach itself to them because of that, as well as mimic her voice from time to time to torment the 2 girls. And the fact that 80% of this is happening to a young girl who is not believed by anyone she tells, as cliche as it is ultimately what put her into a more dangerous and vulnerable position, since she has to deal with a lot of this on her own because of it. I'd give directing a B+. I know I said the film was slow in some areas, but what Rob did in terms of atmosphere and more than makes up for it. Overall, the downsides of the Boogeyman. Overall, despite the downsides, the Boogeyman is a fairly scary film that handles its overall tone very well. Even though it isn't, scary in a lot of areas, it still is very eerie in terms of overall mood. This isn't the darkest King story I've seen, but the themes applied definitely help to give it a very somber mood, somber overall tone, especially given that it's very gloomy throughout, and it isn't a lot of light moments in this. Pardon the pun. Not a lot of light-hearted moments aside from maybe the ending, but even then, that kind of left you hanging. But anyway, I give the Boogeyman a B+. Build-up could have been a little better, but I enjoyed it overall. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and sub for more content.